If you're ready to listen to a series of questionable questions, cool. If not, you might want to move on quickly. Brandartica agency partners Peter Jude Ricciardi and Jeff Lukowski talk to CEOs, founders, makers, shakers, and rule breakers to discover what the hell is happening in that 1/7 of their brains that makes them successful, happy, and human. This is 1/7, the podcast.
"20 years ago, Alison joined Cooking Light Food magazine as their senior food editor and pivoted to focus on food content. There, she worked with a top-notch team of editors, contributors, test kitchen staff, and designers to develop mouth-watering, award-winning features, recipes, and images. Alison, do you confirm or deny any of that?
I can confirm that.
Moving on, when she returned to her home turf of Southern California, Alison dove deeper into creating food content. She received a culinary arts diploma from Le Cordon Bleu. Do you confirm, deny?
I confirm all of that.
Finally, in 2008, Alison founded Content Kitchen to produce food-focused content for national digital and print outlets, including Parade Magazine, EatingWell, and Cooking Light. She also develops custom recipes and images for brands, including Nourish Evolution, La Tortilla Factory, Natural Habitats, and Palm Done Right. Clients call on Alison Ashton for her fresh seasonal approach to recipes and images. Welcome to 1/7.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here today.
It was a little bit Muppet Show, a little bit, I don't know what, on the way in, right? It felt like, I felt a little like Kermit. Jeff, why don't you start with our first series of business questions?
Absolutely. Tell us about your business, Content Kitchen, what you do and who you do it for.
Well, with Content Kitchen, just as Peter noted in the great intro there, and I know it's not easy being green like Kermit, but what I do is work with brands and editorial outlets to create food-focused content. And often what that means is it can mean creating custom recipes, for example, to use a brand's product or ingredient. It also can mean shooting images of those recipes. With Nourish Evolution, which you mentioned in the introduction, I work with them, and that's actually full-scale menu and recipe development for their seasonal menu planning service. So
Awesome.
That, in a nutshell, is what I do.
Was there a person in your life when you were younger who inspired you to cook, or a family member or someone in particular?
This is kind of funny because my mom did not like to cook. She was not a very comfortable cook. It wasn't so much that she hated it. She just wasn't very comfortable in the kitchen. So it's not something that I grew up doing. My grandmother was also kind of an indifferent cook. So while we enjoyed eating, we were not big on the cooking front. So that's something I actually came to a lot later in life as an adult. It kind of came down to my husband and I, we got tired of eating out and eating takeout. And I just started cooking because I'm like, if you follow a recipe, you're going to end up with something. And it was true. And then it just kind of really captured my imagination and led all the way to going to culinary school. It was really just to kind of really deepen my understanding of techniques and ingredients to do what I do better.
So based on that, I have to ask, and I love to cook. And I know, Jeff, you love to cook.
Absolutely, yeah.
I started out as a recipe follower and then ditched it all. But then at some point on my adventure, I went back and was like, sometimes you should just follow the recipe the first time or two. Just make the recipe the way it was intended, and then you can go rogue. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree with that. I mean, I think that's one of the things is you gain more confidence, which is what you exactly were doing, right? You cooked more, you followed recipes, you became more confident, and then you felt more comfortable just improvising, and that's totally understandable, and I think very natural. I certainly did that. I certainly do that now. I do think following a recipe, especially if you want to kind of expand your repertoire, is really the easiest, best way to do it. And I totally agree. You have to follow it the way it's written at least the first time or two, so that you understand what the end product is supposed to be, and then from there you'll go on and tweak it and change it and improvise, and that's where it gets really fun.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what too, I can add to that is in terms of following a recipe, my wife and I always joke about this because I look in the fridge and I'll grab the ingredients out and just make whatever from it with nothing to follow. But she's a baker, and so everything has to be exactly correct in the recipe for it to come out. And that's her gig, right?
Mm-hmm.
That she loves to
Mm-hmm.
bake. But for baking, it is a different thing than
Yeah, baking. It's interesting because I worked in a pastry kitchen kind of when I was doing my externship in culinary school, and pastry. Absolutely, it's a science as much as an art. And so if you do mess with it too much, you're not going to get the outcome. Although I would hazard that your wife, who's an experienced baker, she can also look at a recipe and know where there's latitude to change things up.
yes,
You
yeah,
know, so
definitely
and I'm sure she does.
for
Yeah.
flavorings and things like that for sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, one of the things when we spoke a little while ago, when we met you, Alison, was that we noticed that your food photography was just unbelievable, really fabulous.
Thank you.
Where did this come into play? How did you get the sort of I'm saying it, the expertise that you have in that area, because I think you do have it. Anybody with a camera is not a photographer. You have an eye, and you really do capture ingredients in a very special way. Can you tell us how that came about, and really just what is it exactly about the way you're doing that is different?
I gotta say, I'm verklempt. I hear you say that. But well, it's been kind of an ongoing journey. It's sort of honestly with the rise of digital content. It's a skill, and it's something that I sort of came to at first out of necessity, because I was doing some work with a client, and we needed images, and so I started shooting images, and then in the last several years have really kind of up to the ante in terms of building more skills, understanding more about it, everything from lighting to retouching. I was just retouching an image last week, and it was a composite image of flying food, and it's like, so there's a lot of skills I had to learn, right? And like you said, Peter, anyone can pick up a camera, and you can even get some pretty good images. I think people get incredible images, like with a smartphone, with an iPhone. You can get amazing images, but you still need to understand some basics of composition.
Sure.
And then, of course, if you can have the skills to edit them as well, they're going to be that much better.
Yeah, I also think in terms of food photography, right? One thing that I learned working with professional photographers is everybody kind of has their lane. There are people who shoot landscapes, people who shoot portraits of people. Food photography is its own lane in terms of capturing the essence of the food item that you're trying to convey and get people salivating basically when they see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Photographers do tend to specialize in in one direction or another, and then a lot of photographers, like if they're moving into a different area, they kind of understand that there are different kinds of skills or different kinds of things you need to know when you move into that. Like, it's interesting because like during COVID, a a lot of, say, wedding photographers, they were put out of business like overnight, right? It just dried up overnight. So they had to pivot. They had to. And there's one that I'm thinking of. Gosh, I can't remember her name. I know her company is called Huddle Studio, Huddl Studio. She and her husband started doing stop motion product photography for food, and that has become their business now. So they really, and it was definitely a learning process, because of course stop motion is really, it's photography, it's animation, it's a very meticulous subspecialty, right? And it's just amazing, like what she has done. So yeah, I think that's very true, that photographers do tend to specialize, and when they sort of start to move into a different lane, they tend to be very cognizant that there are things you need to learn before you merge into that lane.
What's the Tom Cruise of food shooting, for you? What's the food? Is it scallions? I heard scallions were particularly crappy on set.
I often find like cilantro, because it's a very delicate herb, so it just dies.
The soapy devil.
Yeah, I love it. It's often used as a garnish. It's a very common garnish, like on Mexican food or any kind of Latin food or Asian food. But it doesn't have a long shelf life, and it goes from perky to exhausted,
right,
like in the blink of an eye. In fact, I was chatting with a food stylist, and we were talking about this, and she was telling me about a shoot that she's been on, and they were shooting sort of a series of images to be put together in a stop motion. And she's like, you can see from one shot to the next, the cilantro just like wilting.
So cilantro truly is the Tom Cruise of the industry. It's difficult. It can be difficult to work with, rather short-lived in some sense, or just short in stature. I don't know.
Here's a question, might be somewhat controversial, but I want to get your take on this. Is it ketchup or mustard on a hot dog?
Oh, that's a good one. Because I think both.
If I could have my way, I don't mean have my way with a hot dog. That's bizarre. We'll edit that. If I could have my way, no. I like a Chicago-style hot dog. I think that's what they call it.
No.
That's,
yes.
To me, like, oh my Lord.
Run through the garden?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the hot or cold, if you will, dish going to be this summer in Southern California?
Gosh, that one's kind of caught me a little off guard. It seems like the hot dish, and this has been going on for a while, and it's really a year-round one, is pizza. It's like we cannot get enough pizza here in LA. There's a guy, actually, I'm in Venice, and there's a chef who has opened up sort of an extended pop-up, and it's in this thing called the Cook's Garden. So it's just, it's a place where you go to buy plants or to buy produce. They have chickens, they have everything. And so he's got a giant pizza oven, like a mobile pizza oven parked in there. And he's slinging pizza with obviously seasonal things from the Cook's Garden. So
that's great.
I love it. Is there a book you can think of that you ever received as a gift or given as a gift or just purchased for yourself that really made an impact and it's kind of a go-to for you?
I know you're probably thinking of like a business book or something like that. But the book that came to mind when you mentioned give away, it's sad because so many people now are experiencing cancer, like they or a loved one are experiencing cancer. And whenever I hear of somebody who has cancer or has a loved one, I send them a book called The Cancer Fighting Kitchen. It's by Rebecca Katz, and it's an utterly amazing book.
Ashley, are you, if I were to ask you to choose one, are you a pond, pool, or ocean person?
Ocean.
That's what it is for me.
Yeah, I always think of Caddyshack when I hear pond. Pond or the pool, that scene.
The pool. No, Caddyshack, right. It's the pool, right?
Right, it's the pool or the pond. I think the pond's good for you, that type of thing.
Oh, yes. Was it an O. Henry or a Baby Ruth? We'll leave it there.
Right.
Are there any words you can hear on that note that you cannot hear without squirming? You can say that there are, or you can tell us what they are.
No, because I kind of get sort of an odd amusement out of things that make me squirm, like mucus. Mucus is like, but it's funny.
Except when it's on you and it's not yours.
Definitely.
That's when it kind of gets.
The word moist too sometimes is a trigger for people. Yeah,
moist is a pretty universal, a universal one. Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know how you bake in a kitchen without throwing that word around a few times. So, what was a topic of conversation with the last person you shared a meal with?
Oh, this is so funny. I went out to dinner with some friends last week. We went to a place here in town, and they were doing a sort of special menu for tableside Caesar salad. So we had a long conversation about Caesar salad. We talked about that, and then also it was three women, and one of them she's back out in the dating world, and she was talking about she's going to get on Raya. Is it Raya? Have I pronounced that right? It's sort of the one it's the app you have to be invited to, and celebrities are on there. So we were quite intrigued by that. So we're hoping to meet up again and get some intel on that.
I'm going to bring it down here one last time. Do you have any unusual habits, Alison? If so, what are they?
Oh my God. Here's the thing about habits. Like, they're not unusual to you. Like, you sometimes don't realize that it's unusual till you start talking to somebody. Like, I'm trying to think of something I do that might be considered unusual. And nothing is coming to mind, because I think because my habits are so typical, right? And I bet they're really not, right? Like you.
I have this thing where if I'm working by myself and there's no one around, I'll still be talking. Like I'll be talking at the screen and doing that kind of thing.
See, I don't think that's unusual at all.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I think.
I thought we were calling that sundowning, Jeff.
Oh, okay.
No, I think that's a very because there was actually what was it? There's a book that Truman Capote wrote. I think might have been a Christmas story or something like that. It was like a novella, and he was describing his elderly aunt. I think it was an aunt, and he described her as having that habit of solitary people talking to herself. Like, and I think, when there's nothing wrong with it. You're not crazy.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Jeff, you want to bring us out and give Alison her last shot at her last shot at a shout out or anything she wants to deny?
Do you have any information you want to share with our listeners before we sign off? 7
people listening.
No. Just, I guess the information is just always keep learning, right? Because I've been spending a lot of, like I said, we were talking about photography, and I've really been digging in on building skills, and just always keep learning. It's the same thing with recipes, right? That's what you're doing when you try a new recipe. You're learning something new, and it's so much fun.
Absolutely. You learn something new every single day.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Thank you so much for taking care of us and joining us and talking to us and sharing with us today. It's Alison Ashton. We're gonna make sure we include your website if that's okay in the notes.
That would be great.
And we really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of the day and enjoy your 4th of July.
Yes.
You too. Thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to 1/7 the podcast. Discover more about the show at 1/7, that's the number 1, the word 7th.com. We're just getting started, and as many of you know, audio consistency when recording a podcast can be a battle or a brawl, so please bear with us as we wrestle that to the ground and make it say uncle. If you like the show, please leave a comment, click the like button, and of course, smash the follow button. 1/7 the podcast is a Brandartica agency production.